The golden light of the setting sun bathed Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, casting long shadows as people gathered in small circles, engaged in conversations that ranged from politics to philosophy, science to spirituality. In the midst of the lively crowd, a sharp-eyed woman with an assertive stance stepped forward, her voice rising above the murmurs of onlookers. Her name was Sarah Williams, a well-known atheist and seasoned debater, and tonight she was ready to challenge one of the most fundamental beliefs in religion: destiny. She paused, letting silence grip the crowd before speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to challenge a belief that has kept millions trapped in helplessness: the concept of Taqdeer, destiny, in Islam. If everything is preordained by God, then what we call free will is nothing but an illusion. Think about it. If a thief was destined to steal, why punish him? If a murderer was fated to kill, why hold him accountable? If our actions are already written, aren't we just puppets performing in a script we never wrote? A few in the crowd nodded in agreement, while others exchanged skeptical glances, sensing that the debate was about to take an interesting turn. A young man, dressed in a crisp, casual shirt and exuding quiet confidence, stepped forward. Ahmed, a well-spoken and presentable Muslim, smiled warmly before responding. "I admire your courage, Sarah, but what you just described is not Islam's concept of Taqdeer, destiny. It's a misinterpretation that even many Muslims have come to believe. Islam does not teach fatalism. It teaches free will within divine laws." Sarah folded her arms. "Really? But doesn't the Quran say, 'Allah guides whom He wills and misguides whom He wills'? Quran 14:4. Doesn't that mean our choices are controlled by God?" Ahmed shook his head gently. That verse is often taken out of context. The Quran does not say that Allah randomly selects people for guidance or misguidance. Instead, it describes a natural law, that people who actively seek the truth will be guided, and those who deliberately reject it will be left astray. Look at this verse instead. Indeed, Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. Quran 13:11. This means that humans must act first before any change happens. Allah does not impose a destiny on people. They shape it themselves. Sarah arched an eyebrow. "So, you're saying people can change their fate?" Ahmed nodded. "Absolutely. Taqdeer, or destiny, is not a rigid pre-written script. It's a system of cause and effect. The world operates on laws. Gravity makes objects fall. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. If you work hard, you succeed. If you neglect your health, you suffer. Similarly, our actions determine our outcomes. Just as there are natural laws governing the universe, there are moral and spiritual laws that govern human life. Sarah folded her arms. "All right, so you're saying people can change their fate? But you also believe that God knows everything before it happens, right? If God already knows what I will do, then isn't my future already set in stone?" Ahmed smiled thoughtfully before continuing. "Let's break this down in a way that's easy to understand. Imagine a video game developer designing an advanced, open-world game. The developer creates multiple pathways within the game, some leading to victory, others to failure. The player is given complete freedom to choose their path, whether to take the easy route, the difficult one, or to make reckless decisions. The developer, having designed the entire system, already knows all possible outcomes, including which choices will lead to success and which will lead to failure. However, The developer does not force the player to take a specific path. The choices still belong to the player. He paused for a moment, letting the idea settle before asking, "Now tell me, just because the game developer knows all possible endings, does that mean the player has no free will?" Sarah tilted her head, thinking, "No, of course not. The player still makes their own choices." Ahmed nodded. "Exactly. Now replace the developer with God and the player with us, humans. Allah, being beyond time, knows all possible choices we can make and their consequences. But His knowledge does not dictate our decisions. He has given us the free will to navigate our own path, just as a player does in a game. So, even though God knows whether we will choose wisely or foolishly, that knowledge does not interfere with our ability to choose freely. We are still responsible for our decisions and the consequences that follow." Sarah pursed her lips, absorbing the explanation. "So, you're saying God knows the future, not because He is forcing it, but because He exists outside of time and sees all possibilities at once?" Ahmed smiled. "Exactly. His knowledge does not remove our ability to choose. It simply means that unlike us, who only see the present moment, He sees everything, past, present, and future, as one complete picture." Sarah asked. "But how can God see the future without predetermining it?" Ahmed pointed to a balcony overlooking the park. "Imagine someone standing on that rooftop, watching a parade below. From that height, they can see both the beginning and the end of the parade at the same time. But does their knowledge of what's coming affect the people marching?" Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "So, God sees everything at once, past, present, and future, because He exists beyond time." Ahmed smiled. "Yes. His knowledge does not interfere with our choices, just like a person on a rooftop sees all but does not control the parade. We are free to make our own choices, but God already knows what we will choose, because He is beyond time, not because He forces us into decisions." A man in the crowd raised his hand. "But if humans have free will, why does God allow evil? Why doesn't He stop crimes before they happen?" Ahmed took a moment before answering. "Great question. Let's use an analogy that we can all relate to: traffic laws. A city designs roads and traffic signals for the safety of all drivers. Some drivers obey the rules, stopping at red lights and driving responsibly. Others ignore the laws, run red lights, and cause accidents. Now tell me, should the city remove all roads and traffic lights just because some drivers break the rules?" The man shook his head. "No, that wouldn't make sense." Ahmed smiled. "Exactly. The roads and laws exist to create order, but people must choose to follow them. If people didn't have the ability to disobey, then there would be no meaningful distinction between responsible and reckless drivers. Free will means responsibility. The existence of laws doesn't force people to follow them. It only provides guidance. In the same way, God has given humans the ability to choose between right and wrong, but He does not force anyone to do good or evil. The consequences of those choices come from the law of requital, a system of cause and effect that governs life." Sarah took a deep breath. A voice in the crowd spoke up. "Can you explain the concept of destiny, Taqdeer, in Islam with a real-life example?" Ahmed took a thoughtful pause before responding. "Great question. Let me share an incident from history that clarifies this beautifully. When a deadly plague broke out, Caliph Umar suggested moving out of the affected town to a safer location. A companion, Abu Ubaidah, who was the commander of his army, objected, "Are you trying to escape Allah's destiny, Taqdeer?" Umar replied, "Yes, I am moving from one Taqdeer to another." Umar then explained, "If someone stays in a plague-infected area, they might die according to one law of Taqdeer. But if they leave for a safer place, they might survive according to another law of Taqdeer. The choice between the two laws is entirely ours. This is the essence of Islamic destiny. We are bound by laws, but we can choose which law we act upon." The crowd murmured in appreciation of the logic. Ahmed continued, "Taqdeer is not about blind fate, it's about the laws governing life. If someone puts their hand in fire, it will burn. The Taqdeer of a person who puts a hand in fire is burning. When that burn is treated with a balm, soothing becomes its Taqdeer. That's not fate, that's a law. Similarly, if someone studies hard, they pass their exams. That's cause and effect." Sarah's eyes flickered with recognition. "So you're saying I still have control over my future, but I can't escape consequences?" Ahmed smiled. "Yes, the law of requital in the Quran teaches that. Good choices lead to good results. Bad choices lead to bad consequences. Islam does not reduce humans to helpless pawns. It empowers them with free will and responsibility." Sarah fell silent for a moment, then extended her hand. "I came here expecting religious fatalism, but your explanation actually makes sense. You've given me a lot to think about." The crowd erupted in applause. Some people shook hands with Ahmed, others left deep in thought. As the sun set over Hyde Park, a fresh perspective had been offered, one that challenged misconceptions about fate and free will, leaving people questioning, reflecting, and most importantly, thinking for themselves.